guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is
Pat O.
Hello. How was your weekend?
Um, before we get to that, I want to address the elephant in the room here.
Uh oh.
And let me start off by saying that when I was growing up, I watched a lot of Wheel of Fortune. My mom watched a lot of Wheel of Fortune. You familiar with that show?
Yes,
I
I
have
am.
to.
I'm old enough for Wheel of Fortune.
Okay. And I thought that Pat Sajak and Vanna White were married
Okay.
just because they were on TV together every night.
All
and
right.
and that's just something that I thought. And eventually, like I said, I spoke those words aloud, and my mom kind of laughed and was like, no, they're just co-hosts together. And now that I have increased interaction with our listeners, I've realized that a lot of people think that you and I are involved. Or at
Oh.
least at least try to like pump me for info uh about you and like make comments and shit. And I just got to say that I that would be amazing. Unfortunately, I'm married, and even more so, and you're involved, and we're both involved, and um, there's also a sizable age difference between us, which comes into play a lot. And this is kind of what I'm getting to with this, and it's something that you just alluded to. A lot of my cultural references are lost upon you because I'm 41, and you are in your late 20s. Late 20s.
That's a very nice way to say that I'm 30. Thank you.
And when you try to get involved with someone that with that much of a gulf between your ages, a lot of like cultural shit is lost upon you. Like
Yes.
I dated someone in there that was a decade or so younger than me, and she didn't know what the fuck I was talking about half the time. I mean, we definitely shared one language in common, but that wasn't enough, you know. And it is on that point, it is on the age difference, and is the cultural differences between us, that I have to come to Ashley and say, Ashley, what the fuck is up with your boy Will Smith? Because any listener of the show knows that Ashley is the world's biggest Will Smith fan that I know of. And I never really pushed her on it because I just chalked it up to one of those things where I'm a decade older than her. I don't know what she's talking about. I've never listened to Millennium side to side, or however you front to back. And old boy's having a moment, ain't he?
Will Smith is going through it. Okay, so hold on because I
Dude,
have to
those
tell you
open
about
marriages aren't healthy. I've been saying that for a while now.
Oh
Open
my God.
relationships are fucking tricky business, and you got to
Well,
watch yourself.
that's
check
not
check yourself before you wreck yourself, man.
now. You and I both know that that's not true. But
Oh,
what
it's
I can tell
100%
you
true, but we'll get to that in a minute.
what I can tell you is I have no idea what's going on because I don't follow celebrity gossip. I do adore Will Smith, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm a '90s baby, so I mean, if you grew up in the '90s, like he was everywhere. He was everywhere. He was the guy on TV. He was the guy in the movies. He was the music. I mean, that was who you had. You had Will Smith. I mean, that was kind of the thing when you first just started to discover music. It was fucking Will Smith's Millennium album because it was all over the radio.
Well, for you, mine was more Guns N' Roses, but I understand. It's like I said, it's a generational thing, and this is one of those, like, I guess, incidents where the generational divide is very apparent. Because I just thought he was, I don't know, I didn't think much of him at all. I mean, I knew the Fresh Prince, but yeah, so that's obviously where we at in American history and the decline of Western civilization. If you're trying to figure out where if future civilizations are trying to figure out where this episode of the podcast falls in the slow collapse of Western civilization, it is, we are recording this the day after the Oscars. So it's all anyone's talking about. And it's a paranormal podcast, and we're not going to spend a
No,
whole
no,
bunch of
no,
time
no, no,
dwelling on
no.
that.
It's not the day after the Oscars. It's the
Oh,
day
it's
after the slap heard around the world. Is what the fuck are the Oscars? Nobody
right.
watches that shit. But everybody knows about the slap. I mean, if we really need to address it, as much as I love Will Smith, celebrities anyway, it's not my fucking business what's going on in their personal life. I don't. I'm not one of those people. I don't feel like I need to know everything about them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I don't follow them. And so, regardless of what is going on, with his wife or his life or between him and Chris Rock, I don't care. Um, from my understanding, Chris Rock made a very poor joke about somebody's side effects of a disorder that they have, which is Will Smith's wife,
Mhm.
and that he probably shouldn't have made. And then Will Smith got on the stage and slapped the fucking taste out of his mouth, and that shouldn't have happened either. So neither of those things should have ever happened at all. Period. I can't condone people making fun of somebody with disabilities, and I can't condone somebody using violence to combat them. So
We're kind of I feel like I have a little bit of a dog in this fight just because I consider us to be performers, and I consider us to be entertainers, and a lot of things we say sometimes, I think when you try to punish somebody either physically or career wise or in any way for a joke that they make or an off the cuff comment that they make while on stage, while performing, I think that's tricky business. And I think I know how award shows work. I don't, who knows if Chris Rock even wrote that line. There's usually a team of writers that work on this thing. He could have been reading off a fucking teleprompter. Who knows if he knew Jada Pinkett Smith's medical status? I didn't. I mean, you obviously didn't. I don't think any of us really, most of us probably didn't know prior to last night if she had, I think it's, I don't even want, I'll mispronounce it because I mispronounce everything. But, whatever she has. I didn't know. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he thought it was a fashion statement. It's definitely, there's women that wear their hair short. That's not an entirely uncommon thing. Um, but I don't know. I think anytime we combat free speech with violence, tasteful or not, I think it's kind of like stinking thinking. I'm not saying anybody should be able to say, well, I am. I think that, within reason, if you're not putting others' lives in danger, there's a difference between making a bad joke and yelling fire in a crowded theater. Chris Rock did not yell fire in a crowded theater. His free speech did not infringe upon the rights or safety of anybody else. Therefore, I don't think, he should have been touched at all. And I think it's even debatable whether or not he knew the full ramifications of what he was saying, if he wasn't aware of her medical history, or if he was just reading off a teleprompter. Then I don't know. That's my 2 cents. The internet's full of hot takes today, and
yeah, especially involving that particular situation, it probably will be for at least the next week. And personally, I don't think that you should. I'm one of those people. I don't think I don't think comedy should be punching down. I don't think that you should. I don't think you should be allowed to be fucking mean to people and then be like, "Oh, it's a joke, man." And I don't. And I'm somebody who within my friend group we dog on each other. We tease each other a lot. So it's not like it's something that I'm unfamiliar with or like I'm a prude when it comes to that type of stuff. But like when you have a platform and you're being unnecessarily mean to people just because you think you can, because you have a platform to do so, I think that you're then being very irresponsible with your platform. But that's me, and that's my personal take. And that's why we talk shit about people before and after the show instead of on the show. So, in the privacy of ourselves.
I don't know if it's punch. I mean, is it punching like? Is it punching down when you're making a joke at somebody who has a net worth of like $100 million? Like, are you really punching down? Like, dude, they're fucking millionaires. They're all
Well, right.
millionaires.
They got very different problems than we do, which is
Punching
why.
down would be making fun of like the coat check boy or something like that. Not that that's a noble profession, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I think it's odd. And it was. I didn't watch. I wasn't watching the because we had that. Talk about my weekend. We did an interview with the Horror Basement and Beyond podcast yesterday,
Yeah.
and which should be premiering this week.
The
So
same day
please,
that this premieres, is that right?
yeah, with Jim Jam and Johnny Leroy, and it was a great time. And it kind of overlapped with the beginning of the Academy Awards, so I didn't bother even tuning in. And I watched the whole thing unfold in real time on Twitter, which is my favorite way to watch historical things happen.
Yeah,
Is
I
via
agree.
Twitter.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's why people are like, "Oh, I prefer Instagram or I prefer Facebook," and I'm like, "No, Twitter's got." That's the reason I could literally never live without Twitter is because the capability for that. You know what I mean? To watch things unfold in real time. And I know you can kind of do that with Facebook, but Facebook doesn't have that wide anonymous net that Twitter does, where you'll start getting news feeds from Australia of like, because that's the footage that everyone watched. Because in America, I guess they censored the broadcast, but like Australia and Japan, people actually got to see the entire incident. And if you watch video of the incident, it's from the Australia or Japanese broadcast. It's not from the American broadcast. So like that's something that you would only really come across on Twitter. You wouldn't come across that on Facebook. You know what I mean? Um, and that's kind of why I prefer Twitter. But yeah, that was so my weekend. I did Gary Con. It was a lot of fun. Played some D&D. Um, Narrowly missed Matthew Lillard, which will become important in a second.
Yeah.
And then Sunday did the Horror Basement and Beyond podcast. We Ashers and I were interviewed by Jim Jam and Johnny Leroy, and that was an awesome time. Those two dudes were hysterical, and we had a good time there. And that's pretty much it. How was your weekend, Ashers?
I also was around the presence of Matthew Lillard, because I was at Horror Hound in
I'm telling you, it's like
Cincinnati.
Helliard.
It is straight up Hellier. It was so weird whenever we discovered this, because it was during our interview yesterday, and you were at Gary Con, and you're like, well Matthew Lillard was here too. I was like, well, how was Matthew Lillard at two places at once? But and I still don't really quite understand. It sounds like he was Gary Con started Thursday night. Is that what you're saying?
He was there Thursday for the wedding, and then he left Friday. And then
And then was that
Satine Phoenix, who's a ex-adult film performer and has a lot of ties in the D&D community. She got married Thursday night at Gary Con, and it was open to all attendees. And Matthew Lillard and what's his name, Joe Maglio from True Blood and stuff.
Yeah.
They were there Thursday night for the opening, for the first day of the con, and for that, and then Lillard skedaddled over to Ohio to hang out with you.
To hang out with me. He knew I was going to be there, so he came to hang out with me. That's what I said about about Tony Todd. Anyway, yeah, I went to Horror Hound, and I only went for Sunday. I didn't go the whole weekend or anything, which is fine. I don't think it was necessary to go the whole weekend, to be honest with
Mm-hmm.
you. As much as I really like to go to the cryptid events and listen to the speakers, I don't give a shit so much to hear the panels at a horror convention.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that part doesn't really excite me much. I just want to go meet the people, talk to them a little bit, buy some shit and leave.
Right.
So, I only went on Sunday, but then the downfall of that was that I also did not want to sit and waste, 3 to 5 hours in any one particular line to meet Nev Campbell or Matthew Lillard or Skeet Ulrich, or, you know what I mean? Like, it just was not that's not worth it to me.
And plus, a lot of times, I think you have to buy those tickets in advance. Like I have friends that do that for whatever reason. They go and they because we have Wizard World that well, I don't know what it's fucking called now, but like it was conventions that come through Chicago with like celebrities where you can meet them. And I know one guy in particular was very much into that whole scene where like his Facebook is like filled with pictures of him standing next to celebrities, like tolerating his presence for 30 seconds, but charging him like $125. Like, I can't think of one person that I would really want to pay just to get a picture with when like you don't have a meaningful interaction with them. They don't know you. They're never going to remember you. You're like person one of 800 that day.
Yeah,
And it's like, I'm giving you $100 to get this picture with you
right.
just so I have something to post on social media. Like, I'll take pictures of my balls and put them on social media and feel better about it.
Yeah, I didn't like that aspect of it. Well, in order to meet like those people, you could pay the extra to do like the photo op or whatever, or you could pay for the early access and still wait in fucking line, but at least get in the line. You couldn't even get in the line. It wasn't even really possible. I mean, you could kind of meander around and walk around in a circle for your entire fucking day and hope to God that the line opens up and you're right there when it does.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't sound like fun to me.
Right.
Or you could also go meet people who have hardly anybody in their line. Fucking Ted Raimi was sitting by himself every fucking time I looked over there and saw him.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it, So
That's what I would do. I would never like, oh, you can meet, Mark Ruffalo, the Incredible Hulk. It's like, or I could go annoy Chekhov from the original Star Wars Trek.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because no
Yeah.
one wants to talk to that dude. You know, I think it's funnier to go fuck with the C-listers. You know, because they're kind of just happy. Like, you want to buy a picture or something, and you'll buy like a $15 picture, and they'll sit there, they'll talk to you for 10 minutes. You know.
Right. And so, I mean, that was kind of the situation. But I mean, I met a good amount of people. I was very disappointed because when I was going, Tony Todd was there, and I knew he was there, but I was told he was not going to be there on Sunday, and I was like, well, fuck, man. So, we go and we do our thing, and then about an hour in, fucking Tony Todd's there, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh shit, well, perfect. But you have to pay money to take pictures with these people. And I mean, yeah, I could just go meet them, but I wanted pictures with these people, especially somebody like Tony Todd. I want to take a picture. I will pay money to take a picture with Tony Todd. So I ran out of money at that point. All the ATMs at the venue were tapped out. So we had to physically leave, go to a gas station, come back, and by the time we came back, his line was capped. That's what that text message meant. When I texted you, you couldn't get into his line anymore. They closed it 2 hours before he was supposed to leave.
I'm going to tell you something I tell my wife all the time. You're walking around with an ATM between your legs. All right. So I don't know about this running to a gas station bullshit. You could have fucking generated that cash almost immediately if you were motivated enough. Probably from Ted Raimi. You didn't have to go any further than Ted Raimi to make your Tony Todd bucks.
Hey, Ted, you got some cash?
Hey, look, I need $65.
He just wasn't.
And
Yeah, he wasn't gonna do it. No, I guess I didn't think to solicit people. I knew I had a very limited amount of time, and I didn't care. I just wanted to meet Tony Todd, and it didn't happen.
right.
Whatever. But the first person I stopped and talked to was Tom Savini,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of people. It did suck because it was the first person I talked to, and he didn't really talk to me much. And he
Hmm.
didn't have like a line. There was no line at all to talk to Tom Savini. And it's not like he was incredibly busy and just trying to push people through his line or anything like that. He just wasn't very interested in talking. So like my thing was like somebody, I don't remember who it was. I think it was actually Jeff Craig. He just approaches people at conventions and stuff and just goes, "Hey, I just wanted to meet you." And I was like, "Oh my god, that's a wonderful icebreaker because whenever I meet people that I've really wanted to meet for a long time, I don't know what to say. I'm very awkward. And
Yeah.
I don't seem like I'm awkward, but I am extremely fucking awkward. And so I was like, I had thought about it, and I'm like, what am I going to say to these people when I meet them? And I could just say, "Hey, I just wanted to meet you," and then I'm back to awkward again. So I decided to ask everybody that I met if they believed in aliens. And so I asked Tom Sabini, "Do you believe in aliens?" He said no. I said, "Okay, cool. All right, then let's do this picture." I sit down with him. We take our picture, and he's like, "Give your money to the alien over there." I mean, he made a little joke. He wasn't mean or rude or anything. But the amount of people, since I have posted my picture of me and Tom Savini, that have come out and said, "Well, how was he?" Because he was an asshole to me, is sad. That kind of sucks. I hate that. Especially because people are fucking paying money for you to give them 5 minutes of your time. Don't be an asshole to them. Like that is the least you can do. These people love the shit out of you, and you're going to be an asshole. I just don't get that. But
Yeah.
that's just me. So then I go and speak to Ted Raimi, and he was the fucking nicest guy in the world. And I asked him, and he was like, "Well, I believe aliens exist. I just don't believe they've visited here and whatever." And he was like, "Why? What do you believe that they exist?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I mean, I was like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of what I do for a living." He's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I told him I'm an investigator. He's like, "Oh, do you got a show on TV?" Or I was like, "Oh, no, I have a podcast." And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." And then he like starts to kind of go on and explain his stance a little bit more, which I'll spare you the details on. But he actually apologized to me. "I'm sorry for taking up all your time." And I was like, What? Like I'm paying you $40 to take a picture with you, dude, and you're gonna apologize to me for explain? I mean, what?" And then he asked what the podcast was called. He asked for one of my business cards. I gave it to him. So Ted, if you're listening, uh, I'm also DTF, so it's. But no, he was a wonderful. He was a gentleman. Spent a lot of time with him. It was great. My buddy that was with us, actually the Reverend, our good friend the Reverend Crimson Nicholas, told him that he really appreciated him showing us his tits on TV. So that was great. An Evil Dead. So that was nice. Then we went, like I said, tried to do the Tony Todd thing. That didn't happen. Went and stood in Tom Atkins' line instead. Tom Atkins was also an asshole to me, and I don't. He really was an asshole to me, and I don't really understand why. Because right before that point, the people that he was talking to before he talked to me, I mean, he was cutting it the fuck up with. Seemed so fucking nice. And then I get up there and I said, I have a question. And I didn't know what protocol was because most of these guys, you have to buy the autograph to get your picture taken with them. It's weird. And, so I did that and I would try not to interrupt them while they were filling out their autograph, right?
Hmm.
But I wanted them to know that I wasn't just going to be awkward and weird and that I kind of wanted to talk to him for a minute. So I was like, oh, I have a question. And he told me to wait. I'm like, okay. So I did. He said, wait. I said, okay. Then when he got done signing, he looked at me. He said, what? I, I said, do you believe in aliens? He said, I don't know. And I was like, oh, okay. All right then. Well, cool. That's an answer. And I just played it off because I'm good at that part. I'm good at bullshit. Took my picture with him, but you can very much see it in my face how very disappointed I was because that was just not a great interaction, and I did not understand. He was an asshole. But whatever. If I'm ever gonna get a picture of Tom Atkins, that was the only time probably because the guy's old as fuck now. So there's that. And then of course I met Lloyd Kaufman, who I wasn't able to ask the alien question because he signed. I've been waiting for 3 years to buy a copy of Toxic Avenger because I've wanted it signed by Lloyd Kaufman. And Lloyd is always at these events. So I just knew that, it was going to be a matter of time. I have other trauma movies, but I've waited for this one in particular. But, Lloyd Kaufman takes his time with everybody. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of guy he is. That's fine. And I talked to him for a minute and he just asked, what do you do? So I told him, I was like, oh, well, I'm an investigator, investigate anomalous phenomena like Bigfoot and aliens and ghosts. And he's, I have a podcast. And oh, he was like, well, have you ever seen an alien? He asked me before I could ask him. And I was like, oh, well, I said no, but in 2016 I saw the Mothman, and he wanted to hear about it. I told him, and then he told me a story of his where he was very drunk in a hotel room, and he's pretty sure that there was a ghost. And then we started talking about drugs and how great drugs were, and he said that there should be more drugs in the world, and he's right. And then he asked if I wanted to distribute my Mothman documentary under Trauma, so that was cool. And I don't know about that offer, but he was great. He was great. So
I got to meet him twice, and he was very cool both times.
every time, yeah.
Yeah, and the second time he didn't remember. The first time I met him was when Space Werewolf played at Trauma Dance, and he did a Q&A with me before we showed it, and we talked about it and stuff, and it was 3 minutes, you know what I mean, and it was a lot of fun, and that was it. And then the next time I saw him, he was at the Music Box for something. I think it was Class of Nukem High 4 Part 1. And he was there, and I had him sign my Everything I Know About Filmmaking I Learned from the Toxic Avenger book.
Yeah.
And I bought some stuff off him, and I said, hey, I know you don't remember me, but we met before. One of my short films played at Trauma Dance, and you were very cool to me, and I just wanted to thank you. And, you've continued to inspire me in a bunch of different ways over the years. Your films when I was younger, your books now that I'm older, and now meeting you and just the way that how generous you are with your time with people. You're a constant source of inspiration for me. And he was like, thanks, man. And he wrote in my book, Space Werewolf is better than the Toxic Avenger and Lloyd Kaufman.
Aw.
I know. I want to fucking cry even like thinking about that because it's not true. But that's fucking Uncle Lloyd. Like
Yeah.
he
He's the
is.
world's biggest and that's what I mean. Like he asked me if I wanted to, distribute the documentary under Trauma, and he's 100% serious. You know,
Oh
and
yeah, but
he
you won't get.
is.
You won't get. I mean, you know their deal, right?
No, right?
Yeah.
You
I
do,
mean, I'm not
yeah.
saying don't do it. I would. I honestly, if I would do that with. I try to get into Trauma Dance this year. I haven't heard back yet, but I would give them the rights. I gave them the rights to fucking what was it called? Don't Pull Out. I think if you have the chance to make money with it, make money with it. But I think if you're like whatever, the guys that did Matt Parker and or Matt Stone and Trey Parker, their first movie, Cannibal the Musical. they did a Troma distro deal, and they didn't
Yeah.
make fucking anything off it. But they thought, you know what, people will see it now at least.
Right.
Otherwise, it's going to languish in fucking obscurity somewhere. Yeah, we could find some smaller company to, maybe give us more money for it, but Troma, at least it'll live on in infamy, and it has. And that's the career choice they made, and look, it paid off for them.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
a lot of people with the if you don't know, the Troma deal is basically you get almost no money for your film, but they will distribute it. They'll slap the Troma logo on it. They'll let you do a full Blu-ray release with a commentary track and everything. But they're going to keep 99% of the money.
Right.
And a lot of people think that that's a raw deal, that the exposure isn't worth the lack of cash that you get. It depends on where you're at the time, how deep of a hole you dug yourself as a filmmaker making your movie in the first place. But I don't think it's a terrible deal for sometimes it works out for people.
Well, have you
And
seen trauma movies? I mean, some of them.
right, well, especially what they distro, like the stuff they make in house is usually pretty good. The stuff Lloyd Kaufman makes is usually pretty
Yeah.
good. And Astron 6, and there's been some good people that came through there and produced some quality shit, but they have, you know, they distro a lot of crap too that they just kind of slap their name on and sell the DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff off the website or at these conventions, and but it's Troma.
Right. It's
Movies of the
trauma.
future. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Right. And I mean, so it's just kind of more of a badge of honor than anything. And it depends on
I
how much
agree.
that badge is worth to you. I mean, if you would have
Yes.
told me this 2 years ago, I probably would have done it. I probably would have been like, oh yeah, sign me up. That
Yeah,
would
but
have
you could
been
probably get an Amazon, and now there's so many
yeah.
streaming services and
Right.
shit. Like, yeah, you can get your cash that way.
Right, 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 right.
So,
And so, I mean, I don't, am I gonna give him my baby? Probably not. But would I make something for him and let him distribute? Yeah, probably.
yeah,
Now that I know that I can, yeah, I would.
not
So,
to not to kind of hijack. I know you're talking about your weekend, but I found out that I don't know if I texted you this or not. I think I did. I think I messaged you on Instagram. I'm going back to work soon. I got like a return to work date and everything.
oh wow,
So yeah, I'm feeling better, which is good. But the downside is that now it's like ticking clock, right? Like all the creative shit that I planned on doing during this time off, I now have like 3 weeks to do. So I'm kind of like, okay, if I'm gonna write something, if I'm gonna do something, if I'm gonna film something, I got 3 weeks, which is just enough time to make it happen. But it's not a whole lot of slack in room. So I'm kind of in creative overdrive right now. So
wow, wonderful.
yeah, my DMs are open for collabs, people. So fucking slide in and start pitching me ideas.
I am trying to pay off all of my debt in the next 6 months, so I'm very busy with that, and we'll see how that goes. So if you guys didn't notice and you didn't listen to last week's episode, there's new merch up on the merch shop, and you should totally go and check it out and buy it so that I can get out of debt. That'd be wonderful. Um, but
What I
that's
tell you about that ATM?
well, I mean, I gotta have buyers first. I don't really have buyers. I got a bunch of people that want shit for free all the time, and that's a
Oh,
problem.
fuck that.
Well, right, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. Anyway, no, that was pretty much my weekend. I mean, that's pretty much, it was fun. I had never been to a horror convention before, believe it or not. I just had never went. It is very fucking expensive. Um,
Yeah.
but some of the holes within myself that I felt needed filled emotionally were definitely filled, and
Uh,
I think that was worth the money, even though, again, like I said, I'm trying to pay off my debt, so it's probably a very bad decision to go and just drop $200 on taking pictures with these people, but they deserve it. They all deserve it, so they deserve my money.
right.
There's that. So that was me. That was my weekend. That's all I really have this week. Um, Pato mentioned that we, did the horror basement and beyond, which, I did an episode just with, Jim Jam uh, a couple months back. So go check out that episode, and also go check out the official horror basement and beyond episode with both myself and Pato. Like I mentioned, we don't really do a lot of things together, which is strange, but I don't know. Maybe people should ask more if we should do things together, because I think it went well. We do this together every week, and it goes all right. I think. I don't know.
I accidentally took an edible, like too much of an edible yesterday. I was really fucking stoned
That,
for that.
that
But I
is
think I did okay. I didn't get too weird, but or rambly, but I was fucking higher than bird pussy. Holy shit! And
But
then I drank coffee like while I was doing it to kind of like perk me up and like
yeah.
focus me, and I was just like,
I think you did
but
fine. I don't think you could tell how high you were if you were really high.
yeah.
But that was the conversation. Pat texted me. He's like, "Hey, I just took a whole edible and I'm really high, so I'll probably be really high tonight." And I told him, I said, "That's okay. I just spoke to Lloyd Kaufman, and he said there needs to be more drugs in the world." So
I nothing against the podcast, but just having Gary Con, because I came home from Gary Con Sunday morning, and I kept fucking forgetting that we had that interview last night.
yeah, me
And
too.
I had it in, I have two, unfortunately, the way my phone is set up, I have like two to-do list schedules on there. I had it on both, and that's why I kept reminding me because I kept looking at it and seeing it. But it's like I would remember that we had the interview, and I would like make preparations and like set an alarm, and then within like an hour I'd forget about it. And me taking the edible happened during one of those windows where I forgot that we had the podcast, and then I got super fucking stoned, and then I was like, I gotta talk to people I don't know in 2 hours, and it ended up working out okay. They were cool,
Yeah,
They had accents, which was entertaining to me. Like I was like, oh, I just like to listen to them, you know.
I'm from Tennessee.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Tennessee, 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 Tennessee. Lord, I really feel so stressed. Anyway, a little
No,
Arrested Development for you guys.
listen, if you can't be high and do a podcast, Pat, you're in the wrong fucking business.
I know,
Um,
right? It's like,
tell you right now. No, but actually, for the most part, I do this sober. Because I don't, we record on Mondays, and I don't usually get off work and get fucking lit. But that's just
right.
me. But you should be able to do it. I used to drink when I did it. I didn't drink like a beer or something, but and I'd probably get high sometimes. Back when it was me and Ivy. No, we would get high every time together and do it. But anyway, so it was fine. It was a good show. Definitely go check that out. Also there, over the weekend, a new episode of Monster Radio came out, where we talked about the Kentucky Goblin. So, go check out Monster Radio, which is still only exclusively on YouTube because I'm a piece of shit and haven't done what I need to do to get it uploaded everywhere else yet. But I will. But of course, we did the Kentucky Goblins over here on our podcast not too long ago. You guys seem to really like that episode. If you want to hear me talk about it again or more with a different person, Monster Radio, go check it out. And then March Madness is coming to a close with on CryptoCasters. They are doing their final round this Thursday, which you guys might be a little too late depending on when you listen to this, but that's okay. I don't remember the region. I think it's
It's north. It's Kinsey, and
for New England, basically.
yeah, that crowd northeast.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I'm definitely going to check that out, and you guys should probably check that out as well.
Please, everybody listening to the show, get the fuck on Clubhouse,
I'm
please.
telling you.
I have no stock in that company. They are not. They're not a paid. We're not paid spokesmen yet, spokeswomen. But yeah, check out Clubhouse. Get more people on Clubhouse. Clubhouse is such an awesome interactive way to do this. It's this, but it's this with, and you can join in on the conversation,
Yes.
and it's so much fun, and it's already got a good healthy base of like podcasters. Like it turns into like a podcaster orgy when everyone's on there, because everyone on, like, I mean, there's like randos in the room and stuff like that, but like for the most part everyone up there has their own podcast, so they're all
Right.
conversationalists by trade, and it's great. I absolutely love it. I love Clubhouse. I cannot sing its praises enough, and I have
Well,
absolutely no reason to do that outside of just pure 100% honesty.
and even like even if you're not coming on and there's nothing scheduled in the cryptozoology club, which of course you can start a room there once you join the cryptozoology club on Clubhouse. But even if there's not anything, there's always fucking something to get on Clubhouse and talk about. Like you can
Oh,
start your own shit and talk about whatever you want. Did Will Smith slap the shit out of Chris Rock? You can get on Clubhouse and talk to everybody about it right then and there. It's
or
cool.
listen to other people talk about it. That's what
Yeah.
I like to do. I like to fold laundry and listen to like Wiccans talk about fucking what Wiccan shit. You know what I mean? And it's just something to do for 20 minutes is listen to people talk about stuff, instead of just listen to music, or yeah, it's listen to a podcast. But what's nice is that, it's kind of random, the stuff that I pick up on and listen to. And then if I want to join in the conversation and actually interact with it, you can. If you're
You
listening to
can, yeah.
Serial, if you're listening to us, you can't always interact right away.
Right.
And with Clubhouse, you can, if you have a question, you can raise your hand and ask that question, and people are more than happy to interact with you because it's still kind of in its infancy. So there's not a shit ton of people on there. But once again, yeah, this Thursday would be a great entry point. They're gonna be doing this March Madness thing, and I mean, I'll be there, I'm sure, and a
Yep.
lot of other people will. So
Yep. Well, we'll be there. And I mean, it is cool. One time I popped into a room about whether or not mushrooms are aliens. That was really cool. That was a great
yeah,
discussion. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It just depends. You can talk to different celebrities are on there, just chilling out in the rooms, and you can get on there and ask them questions. And
I've started to notice that too. That there is more of a celebrity presence on there.
yeah,
It's not as widespread as like say Twitter or Instagram, but every once in a while, I'll be like, oh my god, is that person really doing this? And it's them, you know.
it is them. And I got on there one time, and there was like some room. I'm just scrolling through the rooms, and the one was like how to make the perfect pizza or something. It was like National Pizza Day, and I get on there, and there's like a celebrity chef, and then they immediately invite me up to be a speaker, and it was so fucking wholesome when all of our friends on Clubhouse, because it'll tell you when like you're friends with somebody and they're speaking in a room, like everybody gets on there to listen to me talk about making fucking pizza. Thought that was great. But anyway, yeah, Clubhouse is great. Join it. You can find it actually. It's posted under my link tree. My Clubhouse is. Just go. It's under in the description down there under my link tree. Go find it. All
You
kinds
can
of fun.
find me through hers. So just
Yeah,
I'm not going to update my link tree to include mine 'cause I'm lazy, but yeah, just
lazy.
follow her and then you can follow me.
Anyway, I don't really have any news this week. There was really nothing big that had happened this week in 40 in news. So why don't we go ahead and just get into the topic?
Let's do it.
Good. Yeah. So this week this was kind of a surprise to us. We were supposed to have a guest on, and I'm not going to shame this person, but I'm going to shame them when they come on the show publicly, and they know this. So, um, they, anyway, so Pat and I had less than 24 hours to come up with a topic, and we landed on mermaids. I thought that would be really easy.
Hmm.
Pat, what do you know about mermaids?
Um, More than I did 24 hours ago, I guess, is a good
Yeah.
thing to say.
Cool.
Yeah, I will. Let's and let me just say to the guest because hopefully they're listening because they said that they were a fan of the show or a listener of the show, I should say. Um, I did a lot of research for that guy, and I was very excited to talk to him. Very, 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 very excited to talk to him. I listened to his other interviews on other shows in preparation for him coming on, and I hope that he gets his shit straight and comes back, and I say that lovingly because I was very excited to talk to him. Very, very excited to talk to him. I wanted the dude to be the Criswell to my Ed Wood, like 100%. And I please come back on the show because I really wanted to talk to you. I
Well,
really
he's
wanted.
sick this week. He lost his voice.
That's fine. And hey, shit doth happen. I mean, I understand that better than anybody. But god damn, was I excited to talk to that dude. Seriously. And now we're talking about fucking mermaids. So let's do this.
I didn't know we were talking about fucking mermaids, but I'm sure we will talk about the logistics of fucking mermaids.
Yes, there's some sexual tension with these things. Um, yeah, I think what I kind of, obviously we all know what mermaids are. We're all familiar with the Little Mermaid. We all kind of
Sure.
know how they exist in pop culture and media and stuff. What I thought was interesting was the more I started to read into it, the more I started to make all the connection with a lot of H.P. Lovecraft and his work with the Shadow over Innsmouth and the Palestinian fish god Dagon, and kind of where this idea of aquatic human hybrids comes in, and how kind of a recurring theme it is in many different cultures
Yeah.
and in many different ways. It's not just confined to Ariel, you know what I mean? And Aquaman and shit like that. Like it's kind of one of the more common tropes of human relate like early human like religious culture, like when we were trying to fucking create things and explain things and come up with a system of gods and stuff, that this was one of the recurring themes.
Yeah. I am very conflicted about mermaids because I agree with you. Mermaids is one of the oldest legends that we have.
Right.
It is pretty much universal across the board. Every single culture has some type of mermaid, and not just like ocean people that are, that sit on the ocean. There's also river mermaids and things
Mm.
as well. But and it doesn't make much sense, and I'll acknowledge that it doesn't make much sense. But I don't think that mermaids exist. But I don't know. Maybe I need to reevaluate that, because there have been, this has been a staple in human history for as long as there was human history. And, I always say, and everybody, I think, kind of agrees that if we're going to make grand discoveries, they're going to be out in the ocean,
Right.
when it comes to this kind of stuff. I guess my big gripe with it is that it's supposed to be, what makes a mermaid, I think is kind of where we should start there. I see a mermaid as, an intelligent life, another form of hominid that is intelligent to our standards, and that they can build kind of their own type of civilization. Maybe not with like houses and shit like that, but they can have some type of civilization, as some type of society around themselves. And how they, if they're out there, why haven't they spoken to us? That seems kind of odd. In a world where we are trying to make contact actively with things that come from outer space, why wouldn't we try to make contact actively with things that live in the ocean? That doesn't really make much sense to me. So anyway, going back to the basic concept, you know what a mermaid is? It's a half person, half fish. Is Aquaman is a mermaid?
No, not necessarily.
I thought he could just talk to fish.
Right, but I mean, as far as like a aquatic human underground civilization or something, I think that's one of the more endearing depictions of it. You know,
Does he have a mermaid tail?
no, he's got legs.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, they
Okay.
all have legs. They're like, you know,
All the Aquaman have legs. I
yeah,
don't.
all the Atlanteans. They're Atlanteans. They're from
Oh.
Atlantis.
Oh, so I don't
You
fucking
know.
know comic books. I'm not a nerd. I don't. I'm only talking about mermaids on my weekly weird podcast, but I'm not a fucking nerd.
Oh,
Um,
real totally off topic. I've been wanting to ask you this for literally a year and a
okay,
half.
okay.
I don't know why I'm finally doing it now. The title of this podcast on Wednesdays we talk weird. Is that a Mean Girls reference?
It is both a Mean Girls reference and a John Keel reference,
Okay.
because John Keel has the Wednesday phenomena where, he took 700 UFO sightings, or I'm sorry, yeah, it was UFO sightings, and he had came up with that most UFO sightings happen on Wednesday.
Get the
So
fuck
he
out of here.
Yeah, and so he thought that, I guess you weren't there. It's part of my presentation. I talked about it at the Paranormal Expo. But yeah, so he had an idea called the Wednesday phenomena, that high strangeness events mostly happen on Wednesday. Now, I have looked into whether or not this is still a thing, but I have not tested the numbers. I would like to. Tobias Whalen sent me a really good resource on this, but I didn't do too much deep diving because it was just kind of in passing on Twitter. But um, somebody else did run the numbers on specifically UFO sightings and had come up with, Wednesday's not number one. It's actually Saturday, but number two is Wednesday. So John Keel might not have been completely off. It's just something that hasn't been, I don't think it's been studied correctly, because I would like to do all high strangeness phenomena. I'd like to do all of it and see how it stacks up. But anyway, so yes, it is both a Mean Girls reference and also a Fortean reference.
Amazing.
And it's catchy as hell, so it's the only thing that pops up when you Google it. Anyway, back to mermaids. So Atlantis was episode number 3 of this podcast. So we did touch on mermaids a little bit there. Merfolk, I guess, because there's mermaids and mermen, and I guess merfolk. I don't know what their pronouns are. I'll ask them if we ever catch one. But I don't want people to be upset when the title of this episode is mermaids. Anyway, so I am going to go back to basically history and kind of where these have come from. So people used to say that, sailors and explorers and, pirates, used to see these very beautiful women off in a distance, and they've always had a really bad rep to them. Um, a really popular version of that is the classic siren in what Greek mythology. where they would lure sailors to their death. Basically, they would lure you in with their looks and their beautiful singing, and then they would drown the shit out of you. I don't know why exactly. That really just depends on what cultural group you're looking at for what their motives might have been. But they've always been seen in a negative light. Now, what's interesting though is that this was so widely known that mermaids existed that even people like Blackbeard the pirate wouldn't go to certain areas. This badass fucking pirate guy would not travel in certain areas because they were considered enchanted waters. He was scared of them. Um, Also, allegedly, Christopher Columbus, the white guy that claimed to have discovered America that really didn't, he also reported having a mermaid sighting, him and his crew. So, it's not like there aren't credible people or what we deem as credible. I don't know. Do you consider Christopher Columbus credible? I mean, he did lie about discovering America, but
Yeah, but that's a weird anecdote to fabricate. Why would you come up with that?
right,
You know what I mean? There's
right,
no reason to. You already discovered what you thought is America. You know,
right.
why be like, oh, there was mermaids there too?
And also,
You know
there's
what I mean?
mermaids, right?
Right.
I mean, why not? I don't know. You've already fucking killed off a whole people. You might as well just make the story whatever you want. Wink, wink. Third grade history. That's anyway. Uh, I'll stop poking fun at that. But no, seriously. I mean, in all seriousness, there do seem to be credible reports of this now. Modern science says that these men were actually seeing manatees and didn't know what they were looking at.
Yeah, that's very odd to make have that be your explanation. You know what I
Isn't that
mean?
weird? Have you ever seen a
Yeah.
manatee? I'm sure you have.
Yeah, and they're in zoos and shit. You know what I mean? They look like sea lions. Yeah, so keeping with the manatee thing, in Celtic and Norse mythology, they have the Selkies, and those are they're basically mer people that turn into seals. And if you capture their seal skin once it's shed, you can kind of control them, and you know, it's part of like their folklore and stuff. But what's interesting is that I don't know what it is about that specific type of creature, the manatee, which kind of look like sea lions, like where they feel that these things are connected to humans. Um,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting because like when they say that mermaids in general are misidentified, what there's nothing in the ocean that looks like a human. Like there's definitely like seafaring mammals, which in and of itself is kind of interesting to like try to wrap your head around. You know what I mean? That there would be mammals that would live underwater. Like, why do like not to turn into a fucking stoner like on the couch in somebody's garage while the doors are playing in the background, but like, why are there dolphins? Like, that's fucking nuts. You know?
Yeah, and dolphins are
Like, can you
crazy.
imagine being that intelligent yet somehow being this like fish thing that like has to breathe air but lives in the water? Like, why does that happen? And then they rape everything too, you know, which
Yeah, they
yeah, they
do.
do. I know that. That's why I said it. It's like or whales. Whales are some of the biggest ocean like faring creatures, and they breathe oxygen, but they get that
Yeah.
big. And we know that whales used to walk around on land too. Somehow they just kind of migrated to the ocean. That's where they live now. So it's interesting enough to think that there are mammals that live in the water, and we know that's a fact. So evolution has carried us that far in what we can see. But to say that there's humanoid mammals that kind of are in the ocean, like I don't think that's not that far of a stretch. And the fact that there's been reports of it in the past, I think maybe there was some kind of species or something, and maybe they're in hiding, or maybe they've died off, or whatever. But I don't see how they can take reports of mermaids and say that, oh, they were looking at sea lions or manatees. That seems like a little bit ridiculous to me. I think that if we look at what's the way that nature's kind of evolved, I think there's precedence there for mermaids possibly being in some way at some time more real than what we have now.
Well, we'll kind of get into that portion of it. But just I mean, going back to say that, is saying that these people are seeing manatees, is that the equivalent of like swamp gas or weather
Right, or
balloons?
Jupiter. Yeah, I mean, maybe. In
Because like manatees are fucking large, and that's not what they're describing.
mhm,
They're describing, these teeny tiny attractive women with hair and everything, and manatees don't have all that.
right.
They don't have breasts, they don't have, they don't look like that. So I mean, maybe the tail, sure. I suppose, yeah, they could see the tail flip up in the water, and maybe they run an assumption. But then you're assuming that the only time that these men, sailing the seven seas, ever saw this thing was just the tail end of it. Um, or I suppose if a manatee's head is sticking up out of the water and you're seeing it from the back, it is kind of humanoid shaped. But then, there's the presence of hair also that's not there. So why a woman? Why would they assume it's a woman and not a man?
I would like to see more. I think if you're going to try to disprove mermaids, you would get a lot further talking about the type of psychosis that a person could go through after being on the sea for like a year.
Yeah,
I think that maybe there's something more to that explanation, and that these
right.
people were just horny and nuts. You know what I mean?
It could be.
Like, do you? I
Sure.
know that kind of when we first met, I was wearing that Peg Boy shirt, and you were like, "Oh, Peg Boy," and I was like, "No, it's a band." But like, you know, you know what that comes from, right? Is like Cabin Boys. Like that's what it's a very popular Chicago punk band, but what they got their title from, the term Peg Boy, referred to a human being, like a slave, or like just somebody that was, I don't know, whatever, um on a pirate ship or on a boat, that their job was to sit on a chair with a little peg on the butt to like keep their butthole loose so that they could be enjoyed by the captain and crew. And the phrase cabin boy, that's usually what it refers to, is a boy that was kept in the cabin, in the captain's cabin, for his use. So like when you had sailors on the seas for a long time, like they would miss women, and
Yeah,
that could
sure.
potentially lead to fucking getting so cum-brained that you think that a fucking sea lion is actually a broad. But I mean, that's so crazy though. But I think if you could back that up with with psychological evidence of people being that frantic and horny and delusional, then I think maybe you have an argument there.
Sure.
I could
Sure.
see that maybe, you know, but I still like to think that there's some kind of weird evolutionary offshoot.
And so, I mean, it kind of culminated in, not culminated, but again, the mermaid idea has been around for a very long time. As a matter of fact, it ended up becoming a very big selling point for P.T. Barnum, because in the 1840s, he claimed to have acquired a mermaid, and he was showing it around to places, going, yeah, taking it around places, and people saw it, and it was horrific. It wasn't anything like the stories. And, as a matter of fact, I'm sorry, that's where I wanted to start. Christopher Columbus, when he had his sighting of a mermaid, he said it didn't look like people had described. It wasn't beautiful. It was fucking scary, and it was, monstrous and not anything you wanted to look at. So then P.T. Barnum comes around in the 1840s with his mermaid. He says that it was caught off of the coast of Fiji by a Japanese fisherman, and that's who he bought it off of, hence calling it the Fiji mermaid. And from there, he took this thing around and showed it everywhere. And this thing ended up, I believe it eventually was lost in a fire, but I think that it was originally lost in a fire, and then he had made another one, and it was lost in a fire. Well, this mermaid, this Fiji mermaid, ended up not being anything more but the top half of a monkey sewn to the bottom half of a fish.
Whoa.
And yeah. And we aren't surprised by this, because P.T. Barnum wasn't a very honest man. I mean, he made his living off of freak shows and things like that. So he sold stories is what he did. But you can actually purchase your own Fiji mermaid now. They're very popular. My friend Cherish at the Secret Chambers House of Oddities and Artwork, she has one on display there. You can Google it and you can see what a Fiji mermaid looks like. There's tons of them. But that's what they are. They're just a taxidermy, a taxidermy thing where, again, they take the top half of a small monkey and put it onto the bottom half of a fish, and it looks like a mermaid. Um, they also discovered that other certain fish. Have you ever been to one of those aquariums where you walk through the tunnels? You know, you're underneath the
Yeah,
fish swimming around,
I sure have.
like there's sharks and shit around you. You know, and if you notice some of those sharks and the stingrays and stuff when they float by you and you're looking at the underneath of them, they kind of look like a face. As a matter of fact, the guitar fish is another type of fish, and you guys can go ahead and Google that guy. Um, he horrifyingly, the bottom of him looks like a face. And so a lot of people have tried to take guitar fish and kind of, dress them up and taxidermy them up a little bit and say, "Oh, look, it's a mermaid." We see that a lot in cryptozoology. Actually, the guitar fish or the stingrays or whatever, dressed up to look like mermaids because they do look like that. But then again, the sailors and shit weren't swimming underneath these things most of the time, so they weren't seeing the bottom half of stingrays. You know, so is that even a good explanation? I don't think so. But anyway, we had told a story. I think it was last week or maybe the week before during the news that there is an alleged mermaid body that stays at a particular temple that scientists are now doing tests on to see what it really is, and it is most likely a Fiji mermaid. It's most likely just two animals sewn together to make this thing. So mermaids kind of became a popular thing again. Barnum brought back the mermaid lore for a while, and then it kind of disappeared back into obscurity. And then, you know, the 80s and 90s happened where you had a lot of mermaid heavy media out there.
Right.
And kind of brought it back again. It comes and goes, but mermaids have been around for a very long time. Now, let's get back into the science of it. There is a man, a marine biologist by the name of Alistair Hardy, who ended up proposing the aquatic ape theory. And what he had theorized is that there are certain traits in some human beings that don't make sense for us to have evolved straight from some type of land dwelling creature. He thinks that it's possible that in evolution, we split. Now, there's been different versions of hominid all throughout history.
Hmm.
Homo sapiens are not the only
Hmm.
one, so we know that exists. So anyway, what Mr. Hardy proposed, or I'm sorry, Dr. Hardy proposes is that some people went into the ocean and some people did not. And somewhere, maybe there were certain offshoots that started to evolve to ocean dwelling people and then walked on the land. Now, this marine biologist, he wasn't a cryptozoologist. He wasn't, you know what I mean? He wasn't one of those people. He was a marine biologist and just said, it's kind of fucking weird that sometimes people have webbed feet and that doesn't make any sense. He said it's kind of weird that we have certain traits that set us up for living in water, but then they never really developed. That wasn't the only thing. There was a bunch of stuff to it. It is an interesting theory,
No,
but he says
and like I
that
said, there's plenty
you
of mammals that did evolve into being ocean-dwelling creatures, even though they still breathe oxygen in their mammals. So it why wouldn't something of a humanoid variety do the same? Why just
right. I
whales
mean,
and dolphins? Why not humans at some point and somewhere over the millennia? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I suppose it's a possibility. I mean, again, I think that maybe if there was some type of ocean dwelling hominid that was out there, um, I just don't think. I mean, I don't know. I think that we would have made contact with them by now, or they would have tried to contact us, and then they haven't. But then we have things like Lake Erie has a lake monster, Bessie. And for a long time, I grew up thinking that Bessie was just a Nessie knockoff. The name is, but it's not. It's actually more of like a creature from the Black Lagoon type of thing.
Right.
It's like a humanoid, and that's interesting. There's also, I think today or maybe tomorrow, one of these days is the anniversary of the Charles Mills Lake monster in Ohio, and it was like a humanoid that came out of the lake and scared some shit out of some kids, and then went back, I guess. So it's not like we don't have other tellings of these type of aquatic people, um, these aquatic hominid things living out there. But I don't know. Back in 2013, Animal Planet made a really bad decision that still haunts me to this day. And they put out this mockumentary about mermaids. And it's called Mermaids, the Body Found. And I'm sure if you're listening to the show, you've probably watched it. And it is very annoying because a lot of people take this as evidence because they made this documentary saying that the some big letter organization that works for the government or whatever is trying to cover up the existence of mermaids and that we have proof that mermaids exist, and here's all this proof. And it came complete with full CGI footage, doctored photographs. Everybody in it was an actor, but they were allegedly a doctor, but a marine biologist or whatever, worked for the government. It was a good fake, I'll give you that. And then they actually made a sequel to it called Mermaids: The New Evidence, which had even more. And even while doing research for the show, I would come across, I was looking for like photographic evidence or, videos or anything, and the only things that I could find is from that stupid ass mockumentary. And you'll see them resurface every so often, and you'll see people say, "Oh my God, look, this is footage of a mermaid." It's not; it's just CGI. But the extreme lack of evidence and the fact that it is strictly anecdotally based for me hurts. But then again, I believe in a lot of other things that have absolutely no other evidence besides someone told me about them.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, that
Well,
is a struggle.
there's lots of like underground structures that are found off the coast of America, and other places around the world too, that people still really don't know what to make of. There's stuff off the coast of Florida. There's stuff off the coast of California. Some of them look kind of like temples or just like rudimentary structures. And one theory is that they're from a time when sea levels were different. Sea levels were lower, and that was coastland that's now underwater. Um, or potentially it was built by an underwater civilization. You know, uh, they could be extinct. They could have died off. You know, or they could be in hiding. Or I don't necessarily think that like if they do exist, that their existence is being hidden by the government. Although that's an interesting concept, is that you know once that all this stuff exists, and at some point in our country's development, we started hiding things, right? Uh, giant skulls found in the Grand Canyon, and crashed flying saucers and all this stuff, and it just kind of became our policy just to hide shit, right? And now we're at the point where like it's a full-time job keeping all these plates spinning to hide all this stuff from the rest of the world, right? Because we made the decision long ago just to start lying, and once you start lying, it's really hard to stop, you know. So maybe that's where we're at. I mean, that wouldn't completely surprise me, that at some point we found out about mermaids. We found out that they have underground fucking temples and condos, off the coast of the fucking Florida Keys or whatever, you know, and we hid it, and we hid it, and we kept hiding it and denying it and saying no, that's a, and that's where we're at now. I don't know, um, but there's something about it. There's just something about when you talk about the vastness of the ocean, and you talk about how little about it we know. And if you can talk about sea creatures, and you could talk about giant shark, the megalodon or giant squids or all this stuff, or do UFOs actually come from underwater and all this stuff? You know, how wh- why is it so hard to imagine that there's an underground, or at some point there was an underwater race? Um,
Hmm.
I don't know. It doesn't sound, for whatever reason. I know when you say it and you kind of pick it apart, it starts to feel like bullshit. But there's something about it that doesn't sound that far fetched to me for some reason. They like to say the truth has a special ring to it. People always know the truth when they hear it. Some people always know the truth when they hear it. And I'd like to think that for whatever reason, there's something to this on some level. Maybe it's in our past. Maybe it's time has come and gone, and the Columbus types and the seafaring types were catching glimpses of it. You know, maybe because if you look at like the boats that we have now, that the ocean liners that go across, the Pacific and Atlantic, like there's they're not seeing stuff. You think those guys are looking over the edge and seeing fucking mermaids? Like, no. But in Columbus's day, with those kind of craft, it was more likely that they would see something, because they're looking more, because there's no TV, you know.
Yeah, there's no
So they're
iPhone.
looking over
Yeah,
the edge, and they have a stronger connection to the ocean. And now it's just big ocean freight liners with shipping cars back and forth and shit.
sure.
I don't know. I give it a maybe.
I mean, so we had when we had did the Atlantis episode, we kind of started with that also of what the definition of Atlantis would be, and because that was kind of hard because we do discover lost civilizations all the time in the
Hmm.
ocean, all the time. And so, have we then discovered Atlantis? I don't. I guess I don't think so. Do you think that Atlantis is now is right now to this day a happening society where fish people live, or do you think that it was once a city that was so advanced that God shrunk it down, or whatever it was that happened, and you know now it's gone forever? I don't know. But again, I need more. I need more than a couple of sea stories from old sailors and pirates to buy this theory. I mean, I was in a Facebook group one time and a guy was very pissed off that people were saying that mermaids didn't exist because he's seen them and he was very adamant. Now, was he insane? Probably he was just insane. Yeah, we see that a
Yeah, there's
lot.
crazy people on Facebook.
All the time.
Yeah.
Right. And so was he crazy? It could have been, but or maybe he's not crazy. He's just reactive because he has frustratedly tried to tell people that he's seen mermaids and nobody ever believes him.
We're also probably, this is one of those topics where, like, I mean, some people on, I'm going to do this. I'm going to fucking do this. Some people
Oh my
on
god.
Twitter like to say that, like, all white people should refrain from making comments about the Will Smith, Chris Rock thing because we're not black men. We're not black women. We have no idea what the fuck we're talking about. So keep all their names out your mouth. Right.
Oh,
And I don't know if I necessarily believe in that, but in this case, I will say we are probably the last two 14 enthusiasts that should be talking about mer people because we live in the
in the
Midwest,
Midwest.
right? Like, like I think if you were to talk to like coastal people about it, they might have a little bit more insight or intuitiveness about it, because they live. I've never even fucking like touched the ocean before. Seriously, I've seen it, I guess, kind of, but like I've never like swam off the coast of California or
Me neither. And I probably never will because there might be fucking mermaids out
I,
there.
I'm a,
So
I, I'm personally afraid of jellyfish. Like that's my whole thing. But
oh yeah.
because they'll sting you.
You don't want to get peed
I
on
do, but I can do that separately.
without the
I don't need
sting.
to do that at the beach. I can do that in the hotel room afterwards. Dude, I had a girl piss on me once.
Could you
Just
not?
because I wanted to see her with her shirt off. And she was really into peeing. I had no intention of getting pissed on. I had no dog in that fight. But I was like, she's gonna fucking disrobe to do it, and I really want to see them titties. So that's all it took. I got peed on.
Wait, and she was like, she told you, she's like, oh, I'll get naked for you, but I have to pee on you
No,
first.
I was just like, I'll let you do whatever the fuck you want to do. It just would just put me in the game, coach. Get me one step fucking closer to that. And
I've never peed on
I went
anybody
along
yet. I
with it.
want to.
Oh, that's a big money maker. That's why they cut.
Peeing on
Oh
people?
yeah.
But then you got to do it in person and people get scary.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can't do it. It's not like shaking a stranger's hand. I mean, you want to, make sure that there's a dog man hunter in the other room with a 9mm. But like,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah, true. That's
counting the
true.
money,
That's a good
making
point.
sure no one gets roughed up without paying for it first. But yeah. Anyway, I don't know how we got there.
People think we're a couple. Is that what I heard in the beginning of this episode? People think that we're a
I
thing. Like
so
talking
like
about our
that was part of
pussy
that was
stats.
hyperbole because it was getting me to where
Oh,
I needed
okay.
to get to be like,
Sure.
but I will say that the more listeners that contact me, the more people kind of not they contact me because of you, but it's very weird sometimes the way you get brought up in what context, and I think we'll talk about we'll talk about that in the
Okay.
Patreon exclusive after show.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for $1,000. Yeah, that's right. Um,
It
okay,
comes up
all right,
sometimes.
that's
I will
fine.
say that it's a non-zero amount. I'm not saying it's every time, and I'm not saying it's once. There's definitely
Ooh,
multiple sources, but like, it's just interesting, and it reminds me of that part is true. It definitely gives me the vibe of when I was younger, and I thought Pat Sajak and Vanna White were like a couple because they were on Wheel of Fortune together.
we're gonna talk about it in a couple of minutes once we end this show, but
Okay.
maybe we'll talk about it for people on Patreon for the fair price of $1,000. Anyway, um, anyway, back to mermaids and not pissing
All
on
right.
people. Unless we want to talk more about that. No, um, you're right. But we do have Indiana had the mud mermaids, the mermaids. They had the mud mermaids, which was we had a Adam from Pine Barrens Institute on, and he does a lot of the old timey newspaper stuff.
Uh,
It was a part of a old timey newspaper thing, where two creatures were allegedly found on the Ohio River, in Indiana, and they had very human like features, but nothing ever came out of it ever again. So I don't know. So like that's what I'm saying. These things are also reported in rivers, and you and I both have a Great Lake of our own.
yeah. Well,
Um,
Indiana too. Like especially like I know Fort Wayne is like it's a fort that was built on three rivers. One of them, I think, might
yeah,
have been the Ohio River because it's so close to Ohio. That would make sense. Um,
that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, anything that's seafaring could get caught in a river and then wind up somewhere it's not supposed to.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. We talked about that.
yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna say no.
Well,
You know,
back in I think it was 2008, 2009, I don't remember. There was a story that had came out, and it was about a manatee that had been living in a body of fresh water, and it had been living there for so long that it actually had algae growing on its back. And that was kind of a big deal. That was a big deal for cryptozoology because it kind of gave a little credibility to whether or not sea monsters come in and out of the channels to the rivers
hmm
and go back into the ocean and things like that. Because I don't know if you've ever tried to take a saltwater fish and put it in a freshwater tank, but you can't. They
well,
die.
so it's funny you bring that up. That actually was a major point of the creationist museum, the Noah's Ark thing that we went to last summer, because that was one of the things that they address is, when the rains came, it made everything fresh water, and then salt water developed over time, and blah 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 blah. There's a lot of seafaring creatures that exist in both, and that
Yeah.
can exist in both straight up, and there's a lot of creatures that can uh can can switch or that have switched over like generations. So the
Right.
whole hard like saltwater freshwater thing, it's more of an issue for us than it is for a lot of fish. So, don't let that be the end all be all. Is like, well, if is it saltwater, is it freshwater, can't be both. There's a lot of instances where things switch or can more or less survive in both. Not saying that it's universal for everything. You're absolutely right. If you were to go and grab a fish out of the ocean and then throw it in fresh water, it might just fucking die.
You're gonna kill it,
Right.
yeah. Well, I mean, right. It's not impossible, but it is improbable. It doesn't happen a lot. It's rare that it does. But there are some that do use rivers and things like that to travel from one body of ocean to another. It's not that it never happens because it does happen, but it doesn't happen very often. So anyway, that was just, I mean, so we could, my point was if they are seeing manatees, they could see them in the rivers too
Right.
because they've been
But that
known
goes
to live
that
there.
goes back to the whole is a manatee a reasonable facsimile of a fucking human being, and it's not.
Sure.
I don't.
It's not. I agree
Yeah,
with that.
so I don't know why that whoever keeps bringing that up, like whatever, man.
It's science. Science keeps bringing that up.
Right. Well,
But that's what they say. I don't know. I can't give you a hard yes or a hard no on man or I'm sorry, on mermaids. I'm really very undecided on the topic. Again, I would need some pretty hardcore evidence to go, yes, I believe in this. I don't really care if they exist or not. It's not one of those. It's not like how I want to believe Nessie's a plesiosaur. I want to believe that. I want to believe that. Pat, it's like how you want to believe that the frogmen are frog people, are actual frog people. And I want you to be able to believe that. Mermaids, I don't really care if they exist or not. Doesn't bother me any if they do. That's cool if they do. But I'm not going to go jump on a boat and dedicate my life to the research. There's other things to do. There's other fish to fry that are not mermaids that probably taste better. What do you think a mermaid would taste like?
Fish,
Do you think it would taste like fish, or do you think it would taste like pork, like a
like
human?
long pork.
Yeah.
It depends on which side you're eating. I don't know.
Like if you're
If you're
having
eating
some
some mermaid
mermaid
ass,
ribs,
oh, ribs, yeah, that's what. Yeah, of course, that's what we're going for.
that would be pork. But if you're eating mermaid
Ass,
ass,
right?
because that's the fish portion of it,
I don't know.
then would it taste like fish? We didn't talk about that either. About how does mermaid sex work? How do you think if you were to have sex with a mermaid? How do you think that it would work?
Oh, I'm sure there's scaly fucking vaginas. That I mean, pussies are already weird in the
Oh,
first place, and now you're covering it in green scales and a fucking flap. There's actually, I think it's a Stuart Gordon movie. It might be called Dagon, which is what I brought it up at the beginning of the show. The fish god from like the Philistines back in the day, and it appears in a lot of. It's one of the oldest gods. It's the father of Baal, kind of like the firstborn to. It's not. They don't call him Yahweh, but it's like El, which is like the non Judaic religions that have like the supreme. It's not a monotheistic religion because they have a bunch of other ones, but like the supreme god they call El, and their firstborn is Dagon, and then the other gods kind of offshoot from them, and which you would know if you read the Bible. But yeah, so that's kind of so that's an old school god. Lovecraft incorporates him in a lot of his work, especially the stuff that has to do with like New England and Innsmouth and Miskatonic University and all that shit. And there's a story called Shed Over Innsmouth, which is about a guy that goes back to this town, and it's populated with like human fish hybrids, right? And they're kind of more depicted as like frog people or more like creature from the Black Lagoon than Little Mermaids, but they are mer people, I guess you would say. And Stuart Gordon made a horror movie about it, and it was called Dagon. And in it, there's a scene where a guy fucks a mermaid, and it's pretty graphic. It's not like I mean, obviously they don't show the penises because Hollywood's weird like that. They'll show all the weird fish pussy that you can get your hands on, but they don't show dick for whatever reason. And but yeah, they kind of he has sex with the mer creature, and there's like a
the merman or the
mer female.
mermaid?
Yeah, he gives it a baby, and he
Oh,
kind of mounts it, and there's like a slippery fishy gash that he fucking
oh.
puts himself in
Well, that
until
part
he.
to me is easier to understand than having sex with a merman.
Well, I think they would probably just have something that emerges from betwixt the scales, and
Huh?
it's probably has got like it hooks onto something, and I don't know.
It hooks
I
on
don't want to. I mean, I
something.
could draw. We can save it for the Patreon. I can get real. I'm very creative. If you
You're gonna
if you
draw
want me to hypothesize
merfolk
how you could
genitalia.
get fucked by a mer person, I could. He's gonna set the He's gonna set the trident on the table next to you, and you can feel his strong hands on your shoulders and fucking push you down on the rough wood. You feel your nipples rub against the rough wood. The fucking the sea shanty shack. And
Oh god,
fucking
the sea shanty
this
shack.
like there's just like a sound as like his scales part and the thing comes out and
Oh,
goes in and then you get
gross.
knotted or something. I don't know. I mean, you
Oh,
want to keep going? We could do this.
I don't like any of this. It's
Well,
very
don't try to
unsexy.
like
Um,
don't fuck mermen. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't understand the appeal to. I mean, I just don't get it. To me, it all sounds very gross. I mean, I guess when you think of a mermaid, you think, oh, boobies, like at least. But then even like thinking of like a mermaid slit. No. And then you think of the merman. Do you remember in Zoolander when he said, "I'm not a mermaid, I'm a merman"?
I've never seen that movie.
You never seen
No.
Zoolander? Wow. You know what? You watch Zoolander and I'll watch Men Who Stare at Goats. How about
I already
that?
watched Hellier, and then had the Hellier people yell at me on Twitter. Like I've already fucking done my part. At least
And
when
I've
you watch
never.
Men Who Scare Goats and you're like, this movie sucks, George Clooney's not going to materialize on your Twitter feed, retweet you, and then fucking talk shit back. You know,
I'm gonna talk shit to George Clooney and just just to see if he says
he
anything.
won't.
You won't. No, you're right. You probably won't. No. Anyway, also, have you ever seen Guinea Pig 3? Mermaid in a Manhole.
I've never seen the first two, nor the third one.
You you've never seen the Guinea Pig movies? I mean, you know what they are?
No, but I feel like we've had this conversation before. What are the guinea pig movies?
The guinea pig movies are like, they're well, Charlie Sheen got really fucking mad because he thought number two was real, and he like went on a campaign and like got the FBI involved to like get these movies taken away. Anyway, the first movie is just about a group of guys torturing some woman to death, and then the second movie is about a guy who tortures a woman to death, and except he's like injected her with like a drug to where like she can't feel anything, so she's alive the whole time. It's weird. Anyway, it's really gory, disturbing shit. You know how I like my horror
Right,
movies, really terrible. But number three ends up being weird because it like instead of like being just the usual torture part, I mean, it just straight up is shock for the sake of shock. There's an actual story to it, and this guy is like hanging out in the sewers. I don't know why. He's hanging out in the sewers and he finds a fucking mermaid in the sewer. So then he takes it home and puts it in his bathtub, but like she's really, really sick. And so he's like trying to like take care of her. And also he's a painter. So while she starts fucking oozing some disgusting things out of her body and she's like bleeding everywhere and stuff. So he starts like using all of her like fluids and shit and starts like painting her with her fluids. It's weird and gross. It's good though. I
I
don't know.
want to see this one more than the first two because this one at least sounds like there's some like bizarre, like you could tell
There is.
there's I like people that make movies that like make sense to them, where like they're like if
Yeah.
this is a passion project. Like this sounds like this dude was trying to say some shit, you know.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
would definitely check out Guinea Pig 3. I'll have to look it up.
I mean, it's probably, I'm sure you can get it for free somewhere on the internet. Because that's kind of the only way you can watch these movies anymore. But they're Japanese movies. If that tells you anything. But I
Yeah.
mean, it's gory. It's a lot of body horror, like I said, because she's got like these giant things that are like leaking
Ugh.
like blisters and shit, and he's using that stuff to paint. But it's not like, I don't know, you kind of get over it quickly, and it's like throughout the whole movie, she's just continuously deteriorating while he finishes his painting. So yeah, it's lots of artsy symbolism shit, but also, like I said, lots of body horror. So if you're into that type of thing, watch Guinea Pig 3, Mermaid in a
I
Manhole,
think,
because
yeah, having sex with a mermaid would probably be like the worst aspects of shower sex and pool sex combined.
oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Where like everyone's just sore afterwards and like you don't really get it in and it's just kind of frustrating and like you're worried about falling the entire time or drowning.
Well, because the mermaid doesn't have legs, so like they can't do a lot. You can't do a lot. There's not a lot of positions you can do. You know what I mean?
I'm used to
So
doing all the work
that's
anyway, whatever, man. It's just another day that ends in Y for pedo.
oh man, that's very unfortunate for you, Pato. Um, but that's a good point, I suppose. Anyway, again, I can't give a hard yes or a hard no on mermaids. What do you guys think? Do you think that mermaids are real? Do you believe in mermaids? Why or why not? Have you ever seen any good evidence of mermaids? Maybe I've just overlooked the good
Pick up your
evidence.
cell phone right now, 773-59 weird.
Perfect. See, you know how it goes.
Mhm.
And maybe we'll talk about it. What's the password for this week, Pat? You got one?
Ooh, Guinea Pig 3. Because that way I'll remember to
Guinea pig
watch it
3.
because I'll have people messaging me Guinea Pig 3 all week. It'll be like a daily reminder. Or you know what? Even better. Well, do people message you a lot?
Just, yeah, some people
All
do.
right.
Yeah.
Guinea Pig 3 or Men Who Stare at Goats, depending on which one of us you're messaging. If you're messaging
If it's
if
yeah,
you're messaging me, Guinea Pig 3. If you're messaging Asher's Men Who Stare at Goats.
mini steer goats. Yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds fair enough for me. So, okay. Well, we'll see you guys back here next Wednesday.